morning, church. Hope you're having a great day, and hope we can be a blessing to you today with our devotional going through the book of Philippians. We've been talking the last few days about some things, just thinking about the joy of the Lord and really thinking in general, just focusing on our thinking and adjusting our thoughts and getting our minds focused on the goodness of God and various different things. And we've been talking about Paul as he is in prison and his letter to the Philippian church and his love for them. And we got started off talking about how he has them in his mind and all the different ways he's thinking about them. In the last passage we read, I thank my God upon every remembrance of you, always in every prayer of mine for you all, making requests with joy for your fellowship in the gospel from the first day until now, being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. Talking about how God works in us and works through us, works for us, all the wonderful things that God does for us as his children, and how he loves them. Those thoughts just brought joy to Paul's mind as he is thinking about them. He says, I have you in my mind. But then he's going to move on to talk about not just he has them in his mind, but he has them in his heart as well. And so verses 7 and 8 is what we're going to look at for this morning. He says, even as it is meet for me to think this of you all, because I have you in my heart, inasmuch as both in my bonds, that would be his imprisonment, and in the defense and confirmation of the gospel, ye all are partakers of my grace. For God is my record, how greatly I long after you all in the bowels of Jesus Christ. And so this kind of moves it a little bit deeper. He starts off by talking about how I've got you in my mind, I'm thinking about you, but then he's talking about how I have you in my heart. And it's possible to be thinking about somebody but not really have a passionate thought and having them in your heart. You can be passively thinking about something or someone. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have them deep in your heart. And he wanted to make sure that these folks knew how much he loved them and how much he was not only thinking about them passively, but how much he has them in his hearts as he is in this prison. And Paul's sincere love for these believers really couldn't be disguised or hidden because it was sincere, it was genuine. And the love between believers is evidenced because of salvation. We think about 1 John 3, where it says, we know that we have passed from death unto life because we love the brethren. There is that bond. We talked about that a couple days ago, how there is this bond that believers have because we're both in Christ. And it's the love of Christ in our hearts and flowing through our hearts to one another. But Paul doesn't merely say that he loves them with just words. He demonstrates this love, just like God demonstrates his love to us. We think about Romans chapter 5, verse 8, but God commendeth his love toward us. That is, he's demonstrated his love to us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. There's a demonstration of God's love to us. And Paul has a demonstration of his love to these believers. You say, well, how can he do that from prison? Well, that's just it. The whole reason he's in prison in many ways is because of these people. Now, he's not putting a guilt trip on them, but the reality is Paul is suffering in many ways because of them. And it's because of his faithful preaching, his aggressive preaching, his mission work is the whole reason why he's in this prison to begin with. And so in some ways, he is linking that together, not to discourage them, but to show them how much he's willing to suffer for them. He's willing to go through these things and to suffer because he wants to get the gospel to them, or because he wanted to get the gospel to them in the first place. And he's willing to be in the place where he is right now in order to get the gospel to them. And the sacrifice that he is willing to make for these people is the demonstration of the love that he has for them. He says, even as it is meet or fitting for me to think this of you all, because I have you in my heart. And he says this, inasmuch as both in my bonds, that's him being in jail, and in the defense and confirmation of the gospel, because I'm preaching the gospel. He just comes right out and says it. Again, he's not trying to make them feel guilty. He just wants them to understand how much he's willing to sacrifice for them. He loves them that much. And his love for them extends beyond just words. And he even talks about this in the book of Ephesians. He mentions this to them in chapter 3, verse 1, for this cause, this purpose, I, Paul, the prisoner of Jesus Christ for you Gentiles. He says, I'm willing to go to jail so that you would have the gospel. I'm willing to suffer and go through whatever it takes so that you can have the truth and you can have the gospel. That's a true demonstration of love. If you're willing to sacrifice your own well-being for the benefit of somebody else, that's really a demonstration of love. Jesus talks about this. If you're in my Sunday school class, we've been going through the book of John as Jesus is talking about love. And he says, no greater love has this than a man lay down his life for his friends. And he's talking about, I'm going to show you that I'm your friend by laying down my life for you. And he says that you are my friends if you'll do whatsoever I command you. Kind of turns that on them and says, I love you enough to lay down my life for you. Here's what a real friend does. Now, are you my friend? Are you willing to lay down your life for me? And that's a real demonstration of what true godly love is. But because of this imprisonment and trial to come, Christianity, in fact, would take center stage in the Roman Empire. This is a great sacrifice, not just for the people of Philippi in him going there, but by Paul being in prison, he's going to stand trial for his faith. He's going to stand before Nero, the emperor of Rome, and he's going to be able to witness to the emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world. He'll be able to witness to him the gospel of Christ. But this would also shine light on the city of Philippi, because Philippi was a Roman colony. And so it would bring them into realm of discussion here to some extent. And so the decision for Paul and this trial, it would affect the city in some way. And so there's all these things are playing into this. Paul's love was not merely talked about, it was practiced. And our love for one another needs to go beyond mere words. We need to be demonstrating that in the way we live. And so how can we practice some love? Give me a thought for today, and not a whole lot of really deep thought here, but there's something to consider. Really, verse 8 is the key to this. We just read. He said, "For God is my record, how greatly I long after you all in the bowels of Jesus Christ." He said, I'm longing after you. I am concerned for you. I'm thinking about you on one thing. He talks about starting off by saying, you're in my mind. I'm thinking about you, all my remembrance of you, but you're in my heart. And I'm concerned for you. I'm concerned for what's going on. Now think about that. Paul's in jail, awaiting what's going to become his own execution, and he's concerned about them. If anybody would have cause to say, hey, look at me, what about me? Who's going to love on me? Paul would. But instead, he's concerned about them. He cares about what's going on then in their lives and in their church, in their hometown. He understands that the church of Philippi is suffering and they're going through some things. In fact, many of the Philippians are going to be persecuted for their faith as well. And they're going to be suffering somewhat along the same lines that Paul would be suffering. Maybe not to the same extent, but they're going to be going through some things. Certainly the case of Epaphroditus is going to come up later on in chapter 2. Epaphroditus was going to be one who's going to be coming and bringing an offering to Paul and be bringing news about Philippi back and forth to Paul, and the news of Paul back to Philippi. He's going to be kind of that man that's going to be traveling and going back and forth, kind of the carrier and the messenger, if you will. But he's going to get really sick, and almost to the point of dying. And as Epaphroditus is sick, Paul is burdened for him, and he wants to know how he's doing. And so he talks about how he is longing for them in the bowels of Jesus Christ, and that he's longing after them, and that is just expressing how much he's concerned about their affairs. You know, the thought for the day, I guess, would be we got a lot of people in our church that are battling a lot of illnesses and a lot of burdens, and people are hurting. And it is very easy in life, and even in the Christian life, to just get so focused on our own burdens and our own cares and our own issues we're dealing with. We lose sight of others. And as we said from the beginning, the Christian life is built on and structured on me living for Jesus Christ first and foremost, and then living for other people. And just as Paul was concerned for Epaphroditus, let's look for ways to reach out to people in our church that are suffering, that are hurting, people that are physically sick and battling illnesses. We got a number of people battling cancer and battling just chronic illnesses that they're struggling to get over. Some people that are healing from just surgeries and broken bones. And we certainly have some widows, and we got some people that are hurting emotionally and spiritually. And let's look for ways to try to reach out and be an encouragement to them. Maybe shoot them a text or an email and just say, hey, I'm praying for you today. I'm thinking about you. Or write them a note and put it in the mail. And just reach out to people to try to be a blessing to them. Show your concern, and that you're thinking about them, that you're praying for them, that you have them in your hearts, just like Paul had the Philippian believers in his heart. And God fills our hearts with joy when we reach out to other people. And so let this be a source of strength for you today. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you have a great day, and I hope that the Lord richly blesses you.